quite honestly, the data, I think, is more cool than practical in a lot of senses. We use it for some things, an indication of max amount of travel that you've used on front and rear suspension. RPM range, gear selection. We use it for a lot of simple things like that. But for the most part, at the end of the day, a lot of it has to do with feel. I might go against something that the data says. You know, for instance, this season, the guys have been trying to get me to use more fork travel. For whatever reason, the way the bike feels best to me, I only use 105 millimeters of 125 millimeters of travel. So I'm leaving 20 millimeters of useful suspension on the table. But every time we've tried to make an adjustment to use it, it just doesn't feel quite as good to me. So, you know, we can use that as a baseline later and look at the suspension traces whenever we try something new and say, well, maybe this is why this is happening, or that's why it's happening. Takes some pretty special engineers to really get to the nitty gritty and dirty with that stuff. That stuff's easier to get wrong than it is to get right. So it's a pretty complicated process. Our guys are pretty good. They can do a lot with traction control. We've discussed I don't use a lot of traction control, or any, but I know it's there as a tool if I need it. I have tested it in practice. It's not bad. It's there, and I know it's a tool I can reach to if I need. Same with wheelie control. Otherwise, I kind of leave that more to those guys to make sure that the bike is running as it should be in the best state of tune that it can be. And the rest of it's more or less a feel issue, I think, for me. I was having this discussion earlier, actually. I don't know. It's tough to say. I think Tommy's really consistent, and so Tommy's going to be a threat as far as championship goes. I think the one thing Tommy probably, in my just view of racing with Tommy's a gamer. When it comes time to put it all down, Tommy's capable of stepping it up. He did it in New Jersey. Rode the best I've probably ever seen him ride. I raced against him in a championship in '03. Last 2 races, Tommy upped his game and whipped me pretty bad. But I did well enough to stay in the hunt and win the championship. So I think what Tommy would probably need to do is bring that intensity to the entire season, which is tough because it's risky to do that. But I'm willing to do it, so he's not going to have too much of a choice, hopefully, you know, assuming the first few races go well. You know, we really don't know. Everything's so up in the air. I'm sure Aaron Yates is still going to be in the class. I think Aaron's race wins. He's going to be a threat any given day. You can never count the guy out. I don't know about championship. You know, he's a great rider, but he's a little wild sometimes. I don't know where he's ended up in championships throughout the last couple of years. Typically, this year he wasn't really that far up. I thought I had a pretty rough year. I had quite a few DNFs, and for me to come back and end up, you know, second, I thought that was a pretty good comeback. So, and then you know, Blake Young again. Any given weekend, the kid could pull it out and win a race. You know, is he going to settle down enough to put together a whole season? I don't know. Can't count him out. And don't really know who else is going to be there yet. So that's assuming I think I've still got a job. So, but yeah, it was really good to get a shot at Matt. If next year I have a great season, I feel like it legitimizes my season a little bit. It would have been terrible for Matt to win every race this year and go home, and then you do good next year, and it's kind of empty because they're like, well, Matt's not here. Well, at least I know at New Jersey, Matt came and he rode with heart, and I had the opportunity to beat him heads up, and it was hard work for me. I wanted it bad because I had to chase him down from a 2-second deficit, and you know, not too many people have seen Matt out there that far and been like, I can get him. But I wasn't going to give up easy. I said he's going to have to ride with everything he's got for 23 laps because I'm not going to give this one away. So it was hard work. Yeah, it's. I had a difficult time with the bike in the beginning. The R1 Yamaha's engineering, I think, is pretty unique to Yamaha, and the bike has a feel that was a lot different than any of the bikes I'd ever ridden. It's a very refined motorcycle with very good front end feel, and it likes to roll around turns, where my riding style was very aggressive, to get in there, get the thing stopped with brakes absolutely clamped, get it turned quick and get off. And this bike didn't seem to like that. So I've had to learn as a rider how to adapt to making this motorcycle, how do I use its strengths? Some of those things have been, we've been able to make the bike pretty easy on tires. I don't have to keep much in reserve. I can use the tires from the beginning as hard as I can, and it's still there for me at the finish. The engine characteristic also was a big part of that. I really like this cross-plane crankshaft. It has a very, very good feel. It gives you a really good connection between your hand and the rear wheel. In the way, just a feel for traction, but also the way that the engine has a pretty flat engine characteristic. It doesn't ramp up, so you don't start spinning and then get a big spin out of it. It's pretty controllable, pretty easy to ride. Front end feel, again, when we don't have a stopping to a corner. If you have any series of corners, or if you have something you can flow through really well, the bike, that's really one of its big strengths. It can really, it's a pretty stable machine. It can put those things together really, really well. And fortunately, I've been able to figure out a few of these things before the season was over, so I could go out there and race mats.
If any of us were to see you on the street and just ask you for one bit of advice, or if there's something that we should all leave here today, if you could only give us one piece of advice when we go back home, what would that be?
Gee, and you got toughies, man.
That's my job.
Hopefully I would speak on an individual basis and get an idea of what your goals were. You know, if you just want to be a safer rider, I think that schools like this one are definitely an advantage in learning advanced riding skills, and also something that we talked about. You have the opportunity at a racetrack like this. This is a beautiful racetrack. They put extra runoff out here where you can go off the racetrack surface, run over a curb, and have extra track to get the bike slowed down. There's not a guardrail, there's not a ditch, there's not a wall, there's not a car coming the other way. You have a pretty safe, good environment with which to learn these things. As a racer, they might be a little bit different. I might say, hey, you know, where are you trying to accomplish as a racer? Maybe you need to spend some more time club racing, how to approach going AMA racing. I get those questions a lot from racers, which are who I deal with most of the time. I spend a lot of time around racers, but so it's hard to say. I think you need to figuring out what your niche is going to be is pretty important, and my advice would be different depending on where it is that you plan to go with this, I think. So, tough question to answer.
Nice way to dodge around it.